In Chapter 5, we'll be looking at customers and sales. And customers and sales transactions in Mookie the Beagle are going to mainly be those pet care services that we're providing to those pets and the owners of the pets. Okay, so we'll look at it through the navigation sales transaction, through the navigation bar, through the plus new icon, and also from the workspace. So we'll also be looking at customer list and how do we update customer lists before a transaction and updating those customer lists while we're entering transactions. The next we'll look at projects, and then we're going to look at our products and service list again. All right, and we'll look at inventory, non-inventory, service, and bundles, just basically ways we can set up those products and services that we'll be offering to our customers. Then we're going to look at recording the transactions using sales receipts. So we'll create a sales receipt and then we'll create a bank deposit for those sales receipts. Then finally, we'll look at recording sales transactions using invoices. Okay, so we'll create some invoices and then we'll create some receive payments. And then finally, we'll create bank deposits from those receive payments. All right, so we'll look at where we're at on the satellite. So we've looked at our company setting in week 1. In week 2, we did our chart of accounts. Then in week 3, we looked at banking. And so now we're going to start looking at our customers and sales list. All right, so this navigation, just kind of satellite navigation, just gives you an idea of where we're at in the process. So let's move on to section 5.2. And section 5.2 deals with navigating sales transactions. Basically, how are we going to get to those screens where we're going to start inputting any sales transactions? And the first way of getting there would be from the navigation bar here. We could go to sales and click on sales, and then it'll take us over to the page where we can get started on entering any sales. Then we have our plus new icon. All right, and we go over here. This will be most of our sales will take place in under our customers column. You see we have our invoice. We can receive payments. We can create estimates, credit memos, sales receipts. All of these items here under customers are going to be used when you're creating any sales transactions. This here on our dashboard, this is known as our workspace. So this will be another area where we can find our customers and we can start to work on sales, entering sales transactions here from our customers icon on our workspace. Okay, so let's first go ahead and navigate over to the navigation bar and we'll click on sales. And then we want to choose all sales. So if you go here to sales, you can click on sales for all sales from the list, or you can click on all sales above here, the tab, and it'll open up the all sales. Okay, so this is going to be our sales transaction window. All right, and this is where we can create new transactions. We can look at transactions we've already created. And here up above, it'll have estimates, any estimates we have, any unbilled income, any overdue invoices. And here we have 2 open invoices. All right, so, and anything we recently paid will be here. So we're going to select a new transaction. All right, so this is where we'd go create an invoice for that new transaction. We could import any invoices. All right, we can create payments. These are different items we can do from the new transactions. You also see the sales receipt. We can go ahead and create a sales receipt from the new transaction button. So if you take a look here, you'll see these different items we can go ahead and create from this transaction window. We can also do that from the plus new. If we go over to customers, we'll have the same types of options. Okay, so that's the first way. The navigation bar, the plus new icon. And then if I go back to my dashboard and under getting things done, the workspace is going to show our money in and our money out. So if we just go ahead and open this up a little more, here we have our money in, we have our customers, our products and services, our estimates, our invoices, receiving payments, sales receipts, bank deposits. This is another place where you could go ahead and enter new customers, enter product services, or record transactions with your invoice. Okay, so there's 3 ways you can get to this list. You can go to the navigation bar to sales and all sales. You could go to your plus new icon and you'll have your list here, your different list. Or you can just look in the main dashboard under getting things done, your money in and your money out. These are 2 areas on the workspace where you can also find these lists. Okay, and so here it just kind of goes over each of the lists, so you could read over that. Let's keep moving forward. So section 5.3 is going to deal with the types of sales transactions. All right, so the types of sales transactions that we can use to enter into QuickBooks, any sales transactions. So you could use your invoices, you could receive a payment, you can create estimates, credit memos, sales receipts. These are all different forms of recording any sales transactions. Okay, and so when we're going ahead and we're creating these sales transactions, we're going to use these 2 lists. We'll use our customers list or we'll use our products and service list whenever we're creating transactions, sales transactions within QuickBooks. So let's first look at our customer list. All right, and our customer list is going to just allow us to collect all of the customer's information that we're going to need in billing a customer. So we'd get the customer's name, we get the customer's address, their mobile phone number, and we'd list all of those things inside of QuickBooks in a customer's list. And that helps us to kind of get things done a little quicker as opposed to each time we receive a sale from a customer, we're entering their name and address. Instead, we create these customer lists, and the customer lists help us to move a little quicker inside of QuickBooks, okay? So we can go ahead and update customer lists before a transaction or while we're entering a transaction. So that's what we're going to look at in these next few steps, how to enter it before and how to enter it while we're entering a transaction. So if we want to update a customer's list before entering a transaction, what we're going to do is we're going to go over to our navigation bar. We're going to go over to sales and we're going to select customer. Okay, and once that list opens up, you should find a button. This green button here is a new customer. So you can select new customer. Okay, and we're going to go ahead and put the first name as Sherry. And the last name is Brian. And you'll see the name displays. It'll fill in for you, Sherry Brian. Okay, and we'll go ahead and enter the mobile number. So her mobile number is going to be 415, and this is all given information in your textbook. 415-555-2222. Then we're going to go ahead and put I actually should have put that in the mobile number, 415-555-2222. Then we'll enter a billing address. So it's 222 Murray Street. The city is going to be Bayshore. The state is California. The zip code is 94326. The country is USA. And then we want to make sure that we have checked same as billing address. If you want to add any notes, you could do that there. The primary pay method is going to be credit card. The terms will be due upon receipt. We'll keep our sales from delivery option. We'll use company default, and we'll leave our invoice language at English. And we'll go ahead and select save. So that'll be how we'll go ahead and enter a customer before a transaction. We'll go to new transaction. Actually, we go to all sales. Customers. Okay, so customers. All sales are more so going to be when we're entering transactions. But if we want to enter a customer before we start the transaction, we go to customer and we go to new customer. And we can go ahead and enter a new customer. Got mixed up there for a minute. Okay, so if we're updating customers list while entering transactions, we're going to go ahead and we'll go to our plus new icon. Okay, and then from there, what we want to do is we want to select invoice. Then our invoice will pop up. This is our invoice, and then this customer box here, if you select the arrow, you can go ahead and say add new, and that'll bring up our new customer, our customers list, our on-screen form for our customers, our new customer list. And we can go ahead from here and we can enter a new customer while we're inside and while we're putting in an invoice. We can go ahead and add that new customer. I'm going to go ahead and exit out of there. Okay, and now I'm going to be on 5.5 projects. So QuickBooks does have a projects feature, and it just permits you to set up projects linked to customers. All right, then you can track those transactions and profitability by project. All right, and so in this class we'll set up each one of our pets as a project. All right, so we'll have the customer and we'll have the sub customer. All right, and they'll be linked to each other. So we're going to go ahead and add a project. All right, and so our projects, you'll find it here in the navigation bar. Here's project. Okay, that's how we're going to get to our projects. So the first bullet point, number 1, says to go to your navigation bar here and select project. And you can see how it works if you will like. I'm going to go ahead and skip past that, but definitely if you'd like to do that, go ahead and pause the video and look at this video and kind of see how it works. All right, but basically we can look at profitability in one place. We can keep track of the labor costs and we can eliminate any guesswork. Okay, so it helps us to understand which projects make money and where you should focus most of your efforts in order to be profitable within the project. So we're going to go ahead and start a project. All right, and so it'll ask for the project name. We're going to name this project Maggie. Then it asks the customer, so who is the project for? Our customer is going to be Sherry Bryan. And then we're not going to put any start date, end date. We're going to just go ahead and save. Okay, so now we have Maggie and we have Sharon Bryan. All right, and Maggie is the actual project. Sharon Bryan is the customer, the pet owner, so she's going to be making payments on this project. So if you already have customers inside of QuickBooks, and we do, we have Remy and we have Bella, so we're going to go ahead and convert those over to projects. So QuickBooks does allow, if you have sub customers already created, you can go ahead and convert them over to projects. Okay, so we're going to look at how we would do that. So this is our first quick check. So we go to our navigation bar, we select cells, then we go over to customers. Give that a chance to open up. And so here you have this little icon here. Do you organize sub-customers as projects? You can convert the first level of subcontractors, sub-customers into their own projects and convert now. So this is where we'll select convert now. And we're going to go ahead and select Remy and Bella. Then we'll go ahead and say convert. Continue. Then we want to go to projects. Okay, and so now it asks how many projects are listed for your Mookie the Beagle company. So you want to click over to status and you want to say all status, and then you want to see how many you have listed. So let me open this all the way up so we can get to it. Here we go. So right now I have 1, 2, 3. I have 3 projects listed: Bella, Maggie, and Remy. Okay, so that kind of helps you get through your first quick check. So you should have 3 projects listed. Okay, so we're going over to the next page. And this is where we look at our products and service list. So we had our customers list. Now we're looking at our products and service list. And we've already entered a few services. Okay, so how do we update our products and service list before entering a transaction? So we can update it before, or we can update it while. So before, what we want to do is we want to go to sales, and we want to go ahead and select our products and services, and then you would select new. Okay, so now this products and service list pops up, and we can select new. All right, it wants us to enter a service. So here we're going to select service, and then we're going to go ahead and enter this new service. So this one is going to be an on-site vet service. We'll leave our SKU blank. We'll leave the photo blank. Select product and product service category. It doesn't tell us which one to select for this, so we'll just go ahead and leave it blank for now. We could enter a description. We don't have a description. We'll leave that blank for now. We don't have a sales rate, so we'll leave it blank. It's not giving us that information yet. The income account will be our 4,200 sales account. And then we want to make sure we uncheck I purchased the vendor. Okay, so typically you would save it. For now, it wants us to just exit out. So that just kind of gives you an idea of how you can enter it before a transaction. Okay, so while we're in a transaction, we want to go to our plus new icon. We want to select invoice. Okay, and then inside of our invoice, in order to add a new products or service, we'd go down to our products and service column. We'd click on it. And then here you can add a new service. So if I click add new, that on-screen form to add a product or service would show up, and I would select service, and I would just go through that process of giving it a name, a category, description, a sales, and giving it an income account. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and just close out of here. That's just another way we can get to the on-screen form to enter products and services. So you can either do it from the invoice while you're entering an invoice, or you can go over to sales and to products and services, and you can select new. And it'll bring up that products and service form again. Okay, so we'll move on to the next page. So in your book, you should be on page 327. And now we're going to look at recording sales transactions. So we'll either use a sales receipt, as shown in the diagram, or we'll use an invoice. All right. So a sales receipt is when the customer pays at the same time as they receive the product or service. And then the invoice is going to be when the customer pays later and receives the products or services, and we expect to receive a payment in the future. We're going to go ahead and issue an invoice. So in section 5.8, we're going to look at our customer's sales receipts. Okay, so this is when the customer pays at the time that they're receiving the product or the service. So we'd go over to our plus new icon and we'd go to create a sales receipt. Under customers, you'll find the sales receipt. So that's where we'd go in order to start creating a sales receipt when a customer pays for the service at the same time as they're receiving the service. All right. So this is what the sales receipt would look like, and we'd put the customer and then all of the information would fill in for us. And then all we would mainly be doing is what account we're going to deposit it to, the payment method, and then we choose whatever service or product the customer received and we'd save it. So you can also create bank deposits. So we'd go to the plus new and over under other, we could create a bank deposit. And that's just for when we receive the payment. We have to deposit it into the bank as well. So we'd go ahead and create that bank deposit. Okay, so now we have our first project. We may or may not be saving this one as we get down to the bottom. Okay, this will be one that we're going to save. Okay, so we're going to create a sales receipt. Okay, so that means the customer received a product or service and they're going to pay us at the same time. Okay, they're going to pay us right away. So we go to our plus new icon and we're going to choose sales receipt. This is our on-screen form for our sales receipt. Okay, it gives it a number. We're going to go ahead and select Sherry Bryan as our customer. Okay, and her address automatically filled. And her normal payment method is going to be credit card, but we want to change this over to check. It says our payment method is check. We want to make sure our date is aligned. So this should be January 18th, 2024. Then we'll enter a reference number of 1800. So most times that's the check number that they paid with, check number 1800. Then we want to make sure our deposit to is correct. So we want to deposit it to the 1600 payments to deposit. Okay, this is checking. We want to change this to 1600 payments to deposit. Here we have 1600 payments to deposit. Okay, and if you miss that function and you don't record it as a 1600 payments to deposit, when you go and make your deposit, you're not going to be able to find this transaction. So you want to make sure that you're depositing it to the correct account. Okay, then from our products and service drop down, we're going to go ahead and select Pet Care Short Visit. And here's our Pet Care Short Visit. It'll automatically fill in the rate and the amount, and the quantity is what we're going to be changing. It already gave us a description, but if it didn't autofill, this is what you want to put in that description. And if it didn't autofill, you can always go back to your products and service list and you can go ahead and put that description in the short visits if it didn't fill, so that next time it does autofill for you and you're not entering a description. So our quantity here is going to be 2. Our rate is $80 and the amount should auto correct, so it's 160. In our messages below, we could say Pet Care Services. we wanted to add an attachment, we could add an attachment, and we'll just say save. Okay, so then you can go to your transaction journal. You can select more, go to your transaction journal. Give it a few minutes to open up. So here's our transaction journal. It shows us the last transaction we entered. Okay, and if I scroll over, I should have a debit. It says I should have a debit to my 1600 and a credit to my 4200 sales account. All right, then it asked in your journal entry, what is the debit amount? 160. What is the credit amount? 160. Okay, so we can go ahead and go back to our dashboard. Now we want to create a bank to deposit from the sales receipt. Okay, so we did save that into an account, payments to deposit. So now we're going to go ahead and record that bank deposit. So we go over to our plus new, and we go over to our bank deposit, which is underneath other. We select our bank deposit. We'll wait for that on-screen form. There we go. This is our on-screen form for our bank deposit. We want to make sure that we're depositing it to our checking, our 1001 checking. All right, we want to check that date. The date is January 18, 2024. All right, and then it says select payments to include in the deposit. So we want to go ahead and select the Sherry Bryan. So we'll select it. The payment method is check. That's already set up. And the amount, we want to verify the amount. And the amount should say that it's for 160. Okay, so we see the amount is 160. Okay, and so add funds to the deposit section is blank. Okay, if we wanted to add some funds, we could do that. But from here, what we're going to say is just save and close. And now we've created that bank deposit. Okay, so let's move forward to the next. Quick check. So we have a quick check. All right, and we're going to look at the deposit. Okay, so I've already closed out of the deposit, and I want to go back and look at the deposit, and I want to look at the transaction journal to see what accounts were debited, what accounts were credited, and then finally for the amount. Okay, so we'll go over to, once you've already went out of a transaction, you can always go to your search icon. And so here it's telling you your search icon. And that looking glass is going to be your search icon. And so if you look here, it'll show me my last deposit here. So I'll click on that last deposit. And then I'm going to go down below here to more to find my transaction journal. I'll click on transaction journal. And my transaction journal should be loading. Okay, and so then it asks what are my debits. So my 101 checking was debited for 160, and my 1600 payment to deposit, now it has a credit of 160. So now in that 1600 payments to deposit account, it should be at zero now. Now we've made that deposit, we've moved it over into our checking and out of our payments to deposit. All right, so that helps with quick check. With the quick check 5.3. So we'll move over to the next page. And now we're looking at customer invoices. So with customer invoices, this is when a customer is going to pay us later. So we're going to create an invoice, okay, until we receive that payment. So you go over to your plus new icon and you're going to select invoice. Okay, and so now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to create an invoice. Okay, so we're here at create an invoice. It says the customer is going to be Sandy Cooper Remy. So we'll go over here and select Sandy Cooper Remy. Okay, and for her, we don't have an address yet. The terms are going to be net 30. The date will be January 18th, 2024. And it'll automatically come up with 30 days after that date for the due date. So that's an autofill. Okay, you just want to verify that it's correct. These invoice numbers will autofill, so you don't need to change those. Then we want to go ahead to our products and services, and we want to choose the service. All right, and this is going to be a pet wellness. And this is going to be a vet visit. So we'll select vet visit. Everything's going to pre-fill. Only thing we're going to change is our quantity. If your description isn't there, you're going to go ahead and enter your description. And if you'd like it to autofill, you have to go back over to your products and service list and edit this particular service to include a description. Okay, so the quantity is going to stay at 1, so our rate should be autofill to 260. And you want to verify that that amount is correct. Okay, and you want to just say save. So that saved our invoice. It tells us it was saved. Then we're just going to go ahead and do a quick check in our journal. Okay, and in order to do your quick check, you're just going to go over here again at the bottom of the screen, select more, go to your transaction journal. Your transaction journal will pull up, and you just want to verify what account was debited, what account was credited, and the amount. Okay, and so the amount itself should be for the 260. All right, I'm going to let that go ahead and open up. Okay, and if we scroll over, our 100 accounts receivable. Okay, so accounts receivable is where we're going to record this transaction until we actually receive the money. Okay, once it's received, we'll move it over to our checking. And we're going to record it in our revenue account, which is our sales account. And every time we record a credit in a revenue account, it's increasing. Okay, so our revenues increase with the credit. This is our asset account. All right, so this is the accounts receivable. We'll hold this here until we receive the money. Once the money is received, then we'll transfer it over to our checking. Okay, so the amount should be for 260. Okay, so now we're going to look at how to create a receive payment. All right, so customers can pay and use their credit card. They can pay online by credit card or by bank account transfer, or they can use a customer check. Okay, so those are going to be the 3 different ways we'll receive payments. Okay, and so you can either receive a payment from the receive payment by going to the plus new icon and selecting receive payment. Okay, so if I go there, I have a receive payment here under customers. That's one way. Or I can go to sales and go to the invoice tab, and I can receive a payment from here as well. So I have these payments that I still need to receive. I can go select receive payment, and that's another way I can receive the payment. All right, I can also go to projects. Okay, and I can select the customer. And this one I have to open up a little more. Yeah. So I can go to the customer. And so if I select Bella, and here it says add to project, I can click there and I can receive a payment. I can create an invoice. So those are three different methods I can receive a payment. From the actual project, click on the actual customer, then go to add to project and I can receive a payment. Or I can go to plus new and I can receive a payment. Okay, or I can go to my sales and then to the invoice. Okay, and from here I can receive a payment. So those are the three different ways. And the more you work with it, the more it'll be clearer to you, and you'll find ways of basically getting the job done a little bit quicker, whatever your preference. But those are the three different ways. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over to our navigation bar for this example in your book on page 341. Let me get my book back open. Okay, so we're going to receive this payment. So we're going to go from it says first go to your navigation bar and select projects. Then we're going to go ahead and we're going to find Remy. To open this back up again. And I'm going to go and I'm going to select Remy. Okay, so the project opened up for me. I want to go and I want to say add to project, and I want to go ahead and select receive payment. So we'll wait for the on-screen form to open. The on-screen form is open, so now we want to go ahead. It already filled in our Sandy Cooper. It automatically did all of that for us. We want to check the date. We want to select the payment method, so we're going to say credit card. We'll leave reference number blank. Okay, and we want to make sure our deposit too. We always want to double check that and make sure the account we're choosing is the account we want to deposit it to. And so this one tells us to deposit it to our checking. Now we're receiving a payment. We want to deposit this into our checking account. Okay, we want to make sure that it's for $260. Okay, so my 260 should be showing here for Remy. I don't see it. So let me see. Let's go back for a minute to that invoice. Or I could also find an invoice by number. Okay, so here's the invoice. It just hadn't refreshed. So if you ever can't find an invoice, you just want to go ahead and find the invoice. I remembered that the invoice number, it also shows you in the book, the invoice number is 1004. So I just went ahead and found that invoice here. Okay, but before I do that, I do want to go back and check on that invoice and figure out why it didn't come through. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to sales and I'm going to go to my invoices. Okay, and I'm going to scroll down to my invoice and I'm just going to figure out why it didn't come over. So I'm going to go over here to edit my invoice. Okay. Okay, so why it didn't go over is because I selected Sandy. Okay, I need to select Remy so that it'll show as Sandy Cooper Remy. Okay, so that's the reason it didn't go over. I only put Sandy as the customer, and I need to make sure it's Sandy Cooper Remy. Okay, so I can go ahead and save, and I'm just changing the name to make it correct, and the invoice was corrected and saved. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and save and close. Okay, then we'll go back to our projects. And I want to select Remy. Okay, and I want to add to the project. And I want to receive a payment. So now it's going to take me back to the deposit. And now here we have our Sandy Cooper Remy. I can go ahead and select it. I want to make sure my dates are correct, and I've kind of already done that. My payment method is going to be credit card. We're not going to have a reference number, and the amount should be $260. All right, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and save and close. All right, so now we've received that payment and we've deposited into our 1001 checking. So now we're going to go back to our own screen in our textbook. Okay, so we've completed this section. Let's move forward. So now we want to create a bank deposit for payments to deposit from the received payment. Okay, so we've received the payment. Now we need to go ahead and create the bank deposit as well. Okay, and so basically you would just go through that over again. If we had put it over to payments to deposit, we would just go ahead and again select our plus new icon and we'd go to other and we'd create a bank deposit. Okay, and that's only when we're going ahead and putting it we're putting it to that 1600 account where it's payments to deposit. Okay, in this particular last one, we didn't do it that way. So we went ahead and received the payment and we deposited it to our checking. All right, so we don't need to record any deposits. There aren't any deposits to receive. Okay, but that's how you'd go ahead and create the deposit if you want to go ahead and record the bank deposit. Okay, so that pretty much goes over chapter 5. Next, you have your accounting essentials. You can go ahead and read through that. Okay, then next you want to go ahead and take your quiz and you want to start working on your exercise problems. Okay, and all exercise problems need to be completed in order for your QuickBooks to align with Connect and the answers in Connect. All right, any questions, feel free to email me. I'm always available through email to answer any questions. Make sure you're very specific on your questions so that I can answer you efficiently. All right, so I'll see you in chapter 6.